I'm Jeremy Witcher.
And I'm Calvin Witcher.
And last time we talked about relationships and
Structure of relationships.
The structure of relationships.
Yes.
So that's where we're going to continue today.
Yes.
And the question was, what does a structured relationship look like? We commented that it wasn't always the same for everybody.
No, absolutely not.
So what do you mean by a structured relationship? How does that look?
Well, the structure really has to be very clear-cut. I mean, even if you start with who's doing what. I mean, the relationships, when you're talking about relationships, who is cooking, who is cleaning, who is taking out the trash, who manages the finances, who works, who doesn't work. All of those things need to be discussed. And yes.
Who works and who doesn't work.
Or who works on our next episode.
Pause the camera.
What? But who works maybe inside the house? How does that work look? Who works inside the house?
Right.
How does that work look? All of those things need to really be discussed prior to, or at least when trouble arises, which would never happen to you.
We're trying to do it before.
So we're trying to do it before trouble arises. And a lot of times people get into relationship problems or hiccups, mostly because of the lack of structure or it being a defined structure.
Right, because everyone's just assuming it's going to be always fun and games.
Right.
And when the honeymoon period wears off, then you get down to reality and trying to make it work.
Right.
Right. We're going to talk about communication next time.
Yes, we are.
But hold on to the communication that happened right there, which is a good example
Sure,
of
yes.
work and not work, because that's not what you meant.
No.
And yet the hearer could take that and run with that in the wrong direction.
Right.
Okay, so we'll talk about that in communication. But it was a good example because we do that to each other all the time.
Yes.
We don't. But
Never.
So structure.
Not while the camera.
No, not while the camera. Excuse me, not while the camera's on. Okay. Structure. Is it a good idea to just split everything equally? Because, you know, we want things fair. As people, we want things. I mean, we have children, and our children want everything fair, right? And it doesn't change as you get older. You want it fair. So is that a good idea?
Well, my perception of, I think you said it right there. I think most children, if you talk to them, children really deal with the aspect of, is it fair or not? Mm-hmm. If you were dividing up cookies, if you were dividing up toys, the general perception that children have, whether it's good or bad thing, is it fair? I don't think that really applies when we get older, or really shouldn't apply, because life isn't necessarily fair. Life is about what we bring to the table, and relationships are the same way. So when you talk about relationships being fair, I don't think that's a great quality or really good way to look at it. I think more the best way to look at it is, does it work for the couple?
Because I could see when you talk about responsibilities and partnership in them, you know, initially what you can do is you can go down that list of, you know, how many times do you wash the dishes? How many times do you do the laundry? You know,
you start keeping score.
Yeah, and
because
it does turn into that, doesn't it?
It turns into that, and then
It's
if you start, it's not my turn, and then what happens is you start keeping score, your partner starts keeping score, and then you have this competition going back and forth of who did the most work, and who said I love you the most, and who took out the trash last time, and it's not my turn. And really what you start to do is really set yourself up for failure. It's not a good idea.
And that's where, you know, people think that means structure. But that's about mechanics.
That's the mechanics of it.
And structure does have mechanics in it, but structure doesn't have to be void of feeling and emotion and you know, positive energy.
Absolutely.
And when you start keeping score like that, you just suck the life out of the process, right? So how do you because we did that.
I will say that.
I mean, we went through that, right?
We did.
Score keeping and all of that, and realized that wasn't working.
No.
So how do you fix that? How do you come to... I'll let you talk.
Sometime this year. Believe it or not, structure actually makes relationships a lot more easier to maneuver and easier to manage. If I know that part of my responsibility or part of my role is really to cook, or to take care of the children, or I am responsible for most traditional relationships. Traditional meaning, man and a woman. We would look at it,
and back in the day,
and back a long time ago, obviously,
times
because
have
when
changed.
times have changed. But a long time ago, or a while ago, the man was the breadwinner, the wife stayed at home, and those were very clear roles and structure in their relationship. Now, you might choose to take that role, and it might work for you. It might not. Now, women tend to be the breadwinner sometimes, and men might want to stay at home with the children, or vice versa. It might be that I know that I take out the trash every Monday because the trash comes on Tuesdays. That's very reassuring to know that that's my role. It's clear cut. And if you know that that's what I'm supposed to do, it alleviates all the guessing games. And I think a lot of relationships really hit the rocky times because there are too many things up for guessing. They don't know who's going to do what. And if you're supposed to do it, and I assumed you were going to do it, and you didn't do it, then we have an argument based off of really miscommunication or really unclear.
And one of the biggest, well, I'll speak for myself, the biggest thing that was a real struggle is feeling like house cleaning and cooking and laundry and all of that stuff was demeaning and not important. And I think one of the breakthroughs in my, coming of age in this whole thing was to understand that it's really a role of a house manager. Of the home manager. Yes. And to see myself, like in a business, like my job is to manage this, because it does. You need to have supplies. The house needs to be running smoothly, whatever that means. Right,
and that structure is very necessary. I don't know many people that would go into their job tomorrow if they got an email the night before saying, hey, you know what? Tomorrow we're going to get rid of all of our bosses, all of the managers, and just come and just work and have fun. Most people would already know that that's just going to be chaotic. You need someone that's in charge. You need someone that you need a set of structure. You need a set of rules that helps you know how to really govern yourself.
And for us, what happened is that you were doing the outside of the home.
Working outside of the home.
Managing that end of it. Yes. And I had to take responsibility, and I got to take responsibility, instead of it viewing it as a demeaning task about being inside, because we decided that I was going to stay home and that you were going to be the breadwinner.
Yes.
And I went through that whole thing of, am I valuable? Because I gave up a career.
It kind of doesn't feel like breadwinning, like you're winning something, but maybe, I guess.
City definitions, that's in
some cultures, communication. Here again on episode 3.
Okay. So, but I realized that I was managing this end, you were managing that end.
Yes.
And it really helped when you came in and you started tinkering and messing with this system that I had with the management, that I could say, wait a minute, now you're kind of under my jurisdiction.
Jurisdiction.
There you go.
And the word of the day is
you were under that, and when I went into your stuff, then I was under
my jurisdiction.
Right, and because I remember we had a conversation about how basically sometimes I was feeling like when you come in with a list of stuff that you need done, that it was as if you were putting it on my desk, even though I didn't have a physical desk.
Right.
It was as if you came down and plopped a stack of papers on my desk.
Right.
And just that clarification of, okay, now I need to know, is this emergency stuff? Because otherwise it's going to go under the bottom of my stack with everything else.
Right.
But really seeing my role of that just was very empowering. And that was helpful for me. And again, give us comments, let us know what you think.
Give us questions too. If you have any questions that you're dealing with in your current relationship, or maybe you're not in a relationship right now and you just have questions about how you should start, things you should be aware of beforehand. Right. We're growing this project. I guess that's a good way to say it.
Yeah, and to answer some questions that we've had. Now, it's going to work differently if both people are working outside the home. It's going to be working differently
if you're both in the home, or gender, if you have children, if you don't have children.
So it changes, and ours has changed and evolved.
And it needs to be a very living, breathing structure because unless you plan on keeping or maintaining the same lifestyle and life for the next couple of months or next couple of years,
stagnant.
being stagnant on our next episode.
So.
Then it needs to be a very living structure where you're constantly assessing. Really, back to what I said on the last episode, is does it work for you? Does the structure work for you?
So
with that being said,
we're going to talk about communication next time.
Yes, that's the plan.
We'll see you then.
See you then. Bye.